Hi, I'm Sherri Sulkowski and welcome to Knit On. Today on the show we're going to feature two yarns from Blooming Yarns, which is your local knit shop here in McMurray. Michelle has sent over a couple of things that she wants you to see and know that are available to you. One of them is brand new, actually. She had just unpacked it from the box when I went over to pick it up today. And that is called Skinny Cotton, and it's put out by Blue Sky Alpacas. It's 100% cotton, which of course is going to be great when you start planning your spring and summer projects. It comes sort of in two different ways. I was reading the labels for this. It's not a fiber that I've used yet, as I said. She was just unpacking it from the boxes whenever she gave it to me to bring over for this show. One of them is, of course, 100% organic cotton, and it is created using low impact dyes. So the ones that you see that are colors are using those dyes, and they have some really beautiful colors. You can see there's a dark teal, a spring green, and a really beautiful pale aqua. This is just part of the color palette in this line. It feels really fabulous. And the other part of this line, it's the same yarn, but the other selections are all naturally occurring colors. So these are colors that have not been dyed at all 100% organic cotton and coming in natural colors. And you can tell this one is a natural color that has a little more gray to it than the other two. And of course now globally we're starting to be more aware of the impact that dyeing and some of the processing has as we're buying our products. And so these are two organic choices that you would have if you're choosing some spring and summer knitting. I would also say that this is probably very appropriate for baby wear. I mean, it's incredibly soft, really nice to the touch, so you might want to keep those in mind when you're choosing some things. And I'd have to say, out of all the knit shops that I've ever been to, and I've been shopping for knitting yarns for quite a long time, Michelle has a really fabulous shop. If you haven't stopped over yet to see her, I hope that you will do that. Really beautiful, beautiful shop. Lots of light so you can see the colors really true. It's just a really fun place to shop. The other yarn that I brought in for you from Michelle's shop is called Peruvia. And as you know, I knit for a company called Passion Knit Bags. I've had them here on the show a couple of times. And we happen to be having some trouble this fall finding solid black for a bag that we were using. And normally we use a lot of Cascade 220, which I've also showed you here on the show. And we were not able to get solid black, so they ran over to Michelle's, and she happened to have this yarn in solid black for us, which I think actually in a way is a shame because this yarn is so beautifully dyed that a solid black doesn't do it justice. But it's called Peruvia. It's from Barocco. It is 100% Peruvian wool, but it is incredibly, incredibly soft. I think you would really enjoy knitting with it, as I did when I was working for Passion Knit. But the colors that it comes in, I'll try to hold these up so that we can get a nice close-up for you. They are not solid colors. From a distance they would present as solids. They're not space dyed or anything, but they do have within each color quite a few different tones. This irisy purple has everything from a little bit of sort of almost a muted magenta to a turquoisey color running through it. Very muted, but within that fiber you're going to see some gradation. There's a really fabulous close-up of it. I hope you can tell that on your screens at home. Really nice to work with. The colors are just incredible. Here's a really beautiful green and a dark red. Really beautiful colors to work with. 100% Peruvian Highland wool, and as I said, just super, super soft to the touch. Also in knitting news, I wanted to make you aware of something that I got in the mail. I've been getting this for quite some time now. It's the publication from the Heifer Project, and if you're not familiar with the Heifer Project, they are a charity organization that does work all over the world, sort of on the basis of the old saying, if I teach you to fish, you will be able to eat today, but I'm sorry, I said that wrong. If I give you a fish, you'll be able to eat today. If I teach you to fish, you'll be able to eat forever. And so they provide livestock to impoverished families all over the world and sort of foster industry and well-being in that way. And they have this publication at certain times of the year, and this one came. They chose 4 people who are sort of changing the world in their own way, and I was thrilled to see that Ann Rubin was chosen as one of their top 4 humanitarians, and she has founded a nonprofit called Afghans for Afghans. I know they have the graphics for you. They'll put those up at some point today for you so that you will be able to check out their website. And they provide hand-knitted, 100% animal fiber clothing and blankets for Afghani people. The weather there is extremely harsh, very cold, so they do have certain guidelines as to what they will take to be shipped to them. It does have to be animal fibers, obviously primarily wool, because of the weather conditions there. Check out their website. There are also some other restrictions, certain colors and certain things that they request, but I think it's certainly a very good project for you to know about if you enjoy doing charity knitting as I do. This is going to be my new personal charity knitting project. I've done some other things in the past, but I'm choosing to do this now. They have a fabulous website, including some free patterns that are appropriate for the things that they are able to accept as donations. So I hope that you will check that out. The other thing about this that I found really interesting was that she happens to be holding up a sweater in this picture, which is from a designer that we have featured here on the show, and I've always told you she's one of my favorites, and that's Elizabeth Zimmerman. And this jacket happens to be one of Elizabeth Zimmerman's patterns, I believe, originating from the 60s, and it's called the Baby Surprise Jacket. And you can see that it's sort of knitted in a certain way and then folded, almost like you would think of origami being, to get this effect where the striping is going around the body and the sleeves in a certain fashion. So you can see how a great sweater endures the test of time, and even though this pattern has been out for a great deal of time, obviously somebody chose that to send to an Afghani child to help keep them warm. The other thing that I wanted to show you is that since they do have some restrictions on the things that you can send them, bright colors are something that the Afghani people are quite passionate about and love very much. So they don't, they ask that you not send light colors because of laundering and that sort of thing. They don't have access to washers and dryers the way you and I might. And as I said, a lot of 100% wool. I came up with a little thing that I was doing for passion knits that is a cute little technique that I thought might be appropriate for you if you were doing some knitting for Afghans for Afghans. This is a 2-color process, which we have talked about before. Usually when we do 2-color knitting, we're working on stockinette stitch, and this one is done on garter stitch. Garter stitch, as you know, is where you knit every row so that you have those bumps, which we associate with the wrong side of the fabric. You actually will have those on both sides of the fabric. It's a great fabric to use because it doesn't roll the way we associate with stockinette stitch. So it's appropriate for borders, squares that are going to be put together, that sort of thing. I did it originally on a little hat that I was giving to a young man for Christmas, and then I've also started using it on the handles that we do on the passion knit bags, which is what I have in my hand right here. So I'll get that set up for you so that we can go ahead and show you. As I said, it's a 2-color process, so I will be using 1 color in each hand. As I told you, that always has worked out easiest for me. So let me show you how I get my hands set up for that. I will have my purple, which is my main color, in one hand, and then I will have my green in my left hand. So I'm actually controlling 1 color with each hand as I knit. So as you can see, the bump underneath this stitch is green, which means that I'm going to offset those. So I'm going to make the first one purple, and I'm just knitting, and then the other one is looped over my left index finger, and I just reach back in there and pull up that green through the stitch. I'll do it again for you. The purple I throw, as most of us do here in America with knitting. We throw the yarn. And then the green, I reach back in and take it from my left index finger. So I'm going to do that the whole way across my row. I'm going to do one of each all the way across so that I have purple and green all the way across. So from that right side, you're really not going to be getting that bump effect. What you need to do is to then, I'm going to turn it even though I'm not at the end of my row so that you can get the effect. In the next row, when you see it, it looks like this, and you can see where I've carried those yarns and they've interlocked each other automatically because I had one in each hand, which is the beauty of doing it this way, is that you don't have to worry about twisting those yarns or not twisting those yarns and then getting little spaces in your knitting, which you don't want, obviously. But if we do it in that way, it's already sort of interlocked in underneath. Then on that second row, I'm just going to knit across with my main color, which is my purple. Just knit those across. No green at all. And then when I turn that back around, you're going to see that with that garter stitch, those bumps that we associate with a purl are going to be two colors across. Pull that one down in. So I've offset those so that they are, you know, green, or excuse me, purple above green, so that, and I would do a third set of those. I like things in 3s, 5s, or 7s. I like odd numbers when I do these, but you can choose to use this any way you wish. As I said, it would be great on the border of a little cardigan or a little hat so that the edge doesn't roll. If that's something that you're trying to achieve, is to keep your edge from rolling, garter stitch is always a good way to do that. And you know, if one color garter stitch is getting a little boring for you, if you've been knitting for a long time as I have and you're looking for a different effect to do with that, two colors might be the way to do that. As I said, usually we think of two colors as being on stockinette stitch. This is something that changes it up just a little bit. So if you can just get your hands set up, I'll do that one more time for you just so you can see the setup of my hands. I have my main color in my right hand, which is the one that I normally knit with, and I keep that secondary one just looped right over my index finger so that it's right down there where I need it. I just pop the needle back through and pull it up from my index finger. Makes it really easy, and as I said, that way you don't need to worry about twisting those yarns so that you don't get any spaces in your knitting. I hope that you'll check out the Afghans for Afghans website. It has some really interesting information about the Afghani people and the circumstances over there and why the organization was formed, etc. I think you'll find it very interesting. I hope you'll come on back for the second segment. I have some really exciting sweaters to show you featuring patterns that I have used from Vogue Knitting for a long time. Come on back.
Poison Center, can I help?
What's the number on the bill, ma'am?
Su niña estaba fuera.
What a day! Started with a call from the factory in town. There'd been a chemical spill, and a number of the employees had breathed in the fumes.
This mom called because her 2-year-old got into some old blue pills, and she was scared.
And then I got a snakebite call from the emergency room. Misapplied antivenom.
I made sure that everybody got out into the fresh air, and then I told them what to watch for.
She calmed down when she heard me speak in Spanish. I told her that her little one would be okay.
I explained how to use the new antidote. The patient is feeling much better.
They called quickly, and everyone was fine.
I called back to see how both of them were. She was so grateful.
I was glad to teach them something new.
Experts at your local poison control center are ready to give you free, confidential expert advice 24/7. Call 1-800-222-1222.
Chronic pain is one of America's most urgent and ignored health issues.
Each year we spend millions of dollars on medical research for painful diseases and conditions. But while we wait for cures, people are still suffering. Quietly, secretly, terribly. It's time for relief. That's why Congress has declared this the Decade of Pain Control and Research. To learn more, visit decadeofpain.org.
E-File. Get receipt confirmation and a quicker refund. Log on or tell your tax preparer to e-file for you and join the 53 million e-filers who consider it done.
Welcome back. I'm Sherri Sulkowski, and this is Knit On. In this segment, we're going to talk about Vogue knitting, and the reason that I have found that a lot of their patterns work for me personally, and some of the ones that I have used over the course of the 20 years that I have subscribed to them. This past fall, they celebrated their 25th year of publication, which was a big milestone, of course. Any publication that's been around for 25 years, that's a great deal. And in that issue that they put out, they chose their 10 best designs of the 25 years, and I have one of those here as well that I did for myself. The first one that I pulled for you is probably, I believe it's the oldest Vogue magazine that I have, and it had a little cabled cardigan with a little sort of a wide neckline on it, 3/4 sleeve. I happen to love a 3/4 sleeve for some reason. And I believe this is 1987. I didn't knit it till a few years after that, so I'm guessing that I knitted it around 1990. It's hard for me to remember exactly, but and I've worn it ever since. So I chose a classic design, which is something that you probably want to think about whenever you're knitting a sweater. A sweater is going to take so much of your knitting time and so much of your knitting dollars that you want to think about something that's going to last for you. So the other part of that is a classic pattern as well as a great yarn that's going to hold up for you. This is 100% cotton. And this is a sweater that I have worn and worn and worn in the 17 years that I have had it, since probably 1990 when I knitted it. But you can see a lot of the features on this are something that would never go out of style. It's just a great basic cable, nothing crazy, nothing fancy. Buttons down the front. I chose to do a self button. I just did little crocheted knobs and put those on as my buttons. I ended up actually, after wearing it for quite some time, I never wore it open, so then I went ahead and I sewed the placket closed, but you can see that really did used to be a working placket, just because I felt that it didn't gap or move around if it was tacked down on that edge. But I thought that the self button would work for me. I was having trouble finding a button that I really liked with this shade, so I just went ahead and did a self button. So as I said, I've been wearing this one for 17 years, still in great shape because I chose a classic yarn that I knew would hold up through laundering and that sort of thing, which is another consideration that you might want to take when you're knitting things for yourself that you're going to wear and need to wash and launder and take care of. The second one is maybe a little less classic as we would think of classics being, but it's not trendy, so it has stood the test of time. And this one was put out in 1999. This is the publication. They did it in white. I'll let them come in on that so that you can see it. And who wouldn't want to look like that? I mean, she looks great in that sweater. So I fell in love with it and decided to do it for myself. And I did it in a yarn that is still around. It's one of the, classic yarns of all time. I think you can't go wrong with it. And it's called Cotton Fleece. It's put out by Brown Sheep. And I chose it in a sage green. And you can see, even though it might not be, like I said, exactly what we think of as a classic, the features of it are not necessarily trendy. So I still wear this sweater now. I think I've worn it here on the show, as a matter of fact. It has a round yoke, which is a classic effect. But they did a little takeoff, a little departure, and then did the rest of the body in this really beautiful leafy lace, which is one of the reasons that I decided to do it in green. I thought that was kind of appropriate to do it in green when it had that leaf motif to it. You know, and I've worn it with a million things, everything from jeans to skirts, which is another thing that you probably want to think about when you're planning your sweaters for yourself, is how much that you would be able to get to wear them. So this is another one of my favorites. As I said, the pattern came out in 1999, and that's a few years ago, and still a really great sweater to wear. The third one that I brought in for you is originally published in, I'll have to refresh my memory since I've had so many, originally published in 2005 and was their cover sweater for that issue. You can see they did it in sort of a purple, hot pink, space-dyed yarn mixed with a darker solid color yarn. And then they put it back out for their 25th anniversary edition and named it one of their 10 best of the 25 years. And they did it in more of an earth tone combination. And there is that. And the beauty to this one really is, and it's the reason that I didn't wear it for you today, because most of the effect actually is in the back, is that it is knitted in a circle with sleeves that are inserted into that circle. So I'll hold that up. So you can see you actually start at the center of the circle, just keep increasing until you have a really huge circle. There's a space left on either side for the sleeves. I'll hold one of those out as well for you. Okay. So when you put that on, you can see that that circle is going to be to the back of it. So obviously with me sitting here today, you aren't going to get the best part of that. But I just fell in love with the concept of this sweater the first time that they put it out. I have to admit that I didn't actually knit it for myself, excuse me a minute, until they put it out again, but it had been one of those ones that I had always thought that I had wanted to do. I chose to do it a little differently than it was published. You know, sometimes, you know, I always think I can reinvent the wheel, but I'm happy with the way that it turned out. Instead of using two different yarns, which they did, they used a space dyed and a solid that sort of went together. I decided to put some yarns together that I really loved, so I actually chose 4. And I'll hold those apart for you so you can see what I did. And I think that's something that's really great about, you know, knitting your own sweaters, is that you can really customize them to do whatever you want them to do within your capabilities and your comfort level. If you're comfortable picking out, you know, yarns that are completely different from the pattern, I think you should do that. There's a space-dyed mohair. You can see that's sort of a hot pink, orange, yellow combination. And of course the mohairs always have that sort of halo about them. You can see a lot of the fiber comes up off of the strand, and so you get what we call a halo. They're getting such great shots of these for me today. I appreciate that, and you're going to be able to see exactly what these look like. There's also a strand of a hand-dyed wool, very much the same colorway as that mohair, but as you can see, the wool itself does not have what we call the halo like the mohair will. But this is incredibly soft wool in that same colorway, hot pink, orange, red, and yellow. Then I had a mohair that has a metallic thread running through it, as well as, if I sort of peel it apart here, you'll see it has a couple of components to it that really give it a nice texture and a lot of interest. There's a metallic to it, but there's also one of those railroad track. It's very, 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 very narrow, but it's like arrows, which I've also featured here on the show, that railroad track yarn that's almost kind of a ribbon with holes in it. So that is twisted together with a darker mohair. And then, just to pull it all together, just used a basic hot pink wool. I believe this is Cascade 220. So a nice basic yarn to sort of just anchor everything together. So those are the 4 yarns that I did instead of the 2 that they used. Of course, that meant that I had 1,000,001 ends to weave in on this sweater before it was appropriate to wear it, but it was still a lot of fun to knit this, and I'm glad that I did it, especially since, you know, it was something that I had thought about doing all that time, and then they put it out as one of their best designs of the 25 years. You might find that Vogue isn't the patterns that you are for your own personal style. You might find one of the other knitting magazines to be more of your personal style, and I think that's generally the case, that each of us finds that one of those magazines that's out there now, and we are so blessed to have as many as we have, with knitting being as popular that it is. There are so many more magazines and books out there than there used to be, and so many more choices than there used to be. So if you're thinking about subscribing to one, I would advocate going over to Bloomin' Yarns and talking with Michelle and seeing what magazines she has, checking out a single issue, looking at it, seeing if they're the kind of styles that you think that would be appropriate for you and are the ones that you want to invest your time in, and then think about whether you would like to subscribe to that magazine after you've seen a single issue of it. In your local knit shop, which here it's Bloomin' Yarns, is certainly the best place to do that. Some of the things that Monet and I have picked out, going back to the classic sweater idea, some of the things that we have picked out for the next few months to knit for ourselves actually are still just classic designs from back issues of magazines that we've had for a while. They all happen to be Vogue, even though I think Monet's favorite magazine is Interweave. But so some of those will be coming through the studio and will be here on the show, so I hope that you will tune in for future issues or future segments here, because those will all, as I get them finished, be a part of the show here on Knit On. You know, I love meeting all of you when I'm out and about, so if you see me anywhere and you watch the show, I hope that you'll introduce yourself. We've actually had guests on the show that I've met through taping here at Peters Township, and I love meeting all of you, and we will be having more guests coming up this spring that have emailed me and had questions, and I've developed a bit of a knitting relationship with through the show. So you'll be sure to, if you have any questions, email me at sherrisulkowski@yahoo.com. I know they always keep those graphics ready to put up, and I love hearing from you, love answering your questions, and I would love to have you here on the show. If you're a knitter that has something that you'd love to share here on the show, I hope that you'll let me know that. We love having guests here. It's a lot of fun. It makes the show go faster for me as well. So if you have questions, anything that I can help you with, be in touch. I'd love to talk with you. So until next time, I'm Sherri Sulkowski, and this is Knit On.